Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special series. We are calling Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I'm your host, STJ, as a lot of you know me through Instagram. We are here, as you know, through our series to tell our stories. Story of immigrants, stories of inspirational entrepreneurship, stories of just experiences about life. But today I am so excited, and I've been waiting so long to introduce you to this special episodes that I am so passionate about, and literally thinking about it makes me so emotional and teary-eyed. As some of you know, my father is Palestinian. He was a world-renowned writer, and he was a political analyst. And I thought by doing this, I can actually give him, he already passed, unfortunately, may he rest in peace, in 2014. But I don't believe he got the recognition as a brilliant intellect as he deserved when he was alive. So that's part of the inspiration behind these episodes, and we're hoping that it will become a regular permanent series on this platform. But what really ignited the determination and the assertiveness to, okay, this is time for me to do this, is an article that I came across last year. And I need to write some of the notes I wrote down so to make sure that this is concise and this is precise with a lot of facts and a lot of data. Our purpose in these episodes is to present you with the data, present you with the stories, present you with the facts. And we want to leave you, our audience and our listeners, to be your own judge on whether we deserve, as Palestinian intellects, to be acknowledged and recognized or not. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce my beloved co-host, JD Youssef. He is joining us all the way from Alabama. And thank you so much for coming on and being committed every week to record these episodes with us, Youssef.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Dr. Slava, for this opportunity. And yeah, let's dig in. I'm ready.
Yeah, we've been so ready for a long time, but unfortunately, a lot of different things were taking more precedence and trumped a lot of the some of the events. So the article that I came across, it was titled, to my surprise, which I didn't even know that, is why Palestinians have become known as the world's best educated refugees, according to an article by Anne Irfan, published at Columbia University Press Blog on August 23rd, 2023. I will not lie that when I read and found that, I was doing research for my DPI, and I was doing research about discovering Palestinian intellect, discovering Palestinian entrepreneurs, and Googled some of this stuff, and I came across this article, and I just sobbed. I cried. But as I dug deeper into the research, I collected a lot of data, and it's fascinating. Of course, I related to a lot of the facts they were discussing, and I identified with the some of the values and the beliefs that my dad have taught us about being an intellect, being well-educated, being knowledgeable. And as I mentioned so many times in previous episodes, in my household, it was more important to be right than to be loved. And that was my dad. My dad was a huge researcher. He has a PhD in literature, master's first and a PhD. And he is all about facts. And the lesson that he taught us, in order to protect yourself from being emotional or being emotionally compromised, check your facts and make sure you are knowledgeable of that matter, the situation, the circumstances before you react and respond to others' conduct. So let's dig in. This is one of the facts that came out, but also the report in 2018 from the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics found that Palestinians have one of the higher literacy rates in the world. So just alone, these two facts are just mind-boggling, right? How is it possible for a race and a nation and a population that's been suppressed and oppressed for over 70 years with the most limited, minimized resources, be and become the world's best educated refugees? Not one of, the world best educated refugees. So we are gonna go into the key psychological and sociocultural factors that drive their determination, that drive their passion, and their perseverance, resilience, and strength and faith, of course. So, Youssef, what goes through your mind when you found out this fact? First of all, did you know that this is actually a fact?
I heard of this in the past, but I never did my due diligence and actually did research. So thank you for actually coming with the facts. It honestly makes sense just thinking about that. Maybe a handful of people that really who don't have that educational background or mindset that come from, our people, but the majority do. And it's, again, based upon circumstances. Education is something that, I'm sure that you can allude to as well. Something that you can't take away from us, right? Because we've had so many armies, people come through our area of the Levant, and they've taken everything. We've changed languages multiple times, and but what's in our head you can't take away. So I think that's actually a testament to the will of the people, and again, based upon their circumstances.
No, I agree with you 100%. And alhamdulillah, your parents are still around. Thank God. My dad has passed, which he was a wealth of knowledge and experience and wisdom and philosophical approach on life. Granted, I didn't have the, daddy's girl relationship with my dad because, number one, I think I didn't appreciate him when I was younger because I couldn't understand him. And as you know, you don't appreciate something you don't understand. And I was very busy with following my mom's lead as a Arab female. As you know, the structure and the dynamic of the household in the Arabian culture is the daughter follows the mom's guidance, the mom customs, the mom approach, conduct, and style of life. But when I went to dental school, got married, and graduated and owned my business, I found myself, going backwards and tapping into some of the lessons that I fortunately picked up from my dad's wisdom. And the other reason why I didn't have a solid relationship with my dad traveled a lot through his career until he retired and started writing, and then he pursued his master's and PhD in literature. But when that happened, he settled down, he spent more time at home. I was gone for college. So we didn't get the chance to really rekindle, revisit, relive, sit together and say, hey, what happened? Let's, structure a relationship, rebuild that relationship. But the third factor, I think, is because we are so alike. We used to butt head a lot. And I was the righteous one in the household that I couldn't stand any discrimination or exclusivity or with anybody, whether siblings, my mom, the help, my cousins, it doesn't matter. In school, I was the one always stepping forward and says like, hey, what you're doing is wrong and you need to check yourself, basically, including my father, believe it or not. So I got kicked out of his study many, 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 many times. And my mom's like, serves you right. You don't learn your lesson. You keep going back at it. And I used to tell her, Mom, it just doesn't make sense for somebody that is so wise and so logical and so philosophical that does what he does sometimes. But again, he's an artist, he was a creator, and you know how artists are when they get in the mood, if they're trying to create something, anything that interferes with that or interrupts that, they explode, right? It's like touching a hot wire and they snap. And I didn't like that. I was like, dude, collect yourself, basically, my brother didn't do anything. Just because he ran past you and you were like thinking or writing, you shouldn't just swat him, So those are little things. So I kept my distance because I didn't want him to get the impression that I didn't care about him as a daughter. And I have a little bit of guilt because now he's passed and I don't get to talk to him except through my dreams, is that he used to tell me a lot. He used to tell me, all 4 of you siblings in one eye and Slava goes in the special eye. And they didn't like to hear that because I used to tell him, don't tell me, show me. Dad, you're never there. And he used to explain to me that I worked really hard to provide for you and your siblings and the family. So don't blame me for that. Otherwise, you'll be back in Jordan, just like the rest of your cousins, and you have just, mediocre family. You won't have that privileged family that you have in Saudi. Again, as a young girl, did not understand it. But now, as a business owner, as an adult, I really, really appreciate it. So going back to the fact that I discovered this article and I felt that my duty, the least I can do to celebrate his legacy and give him the acknowledgement, and every Palestinian intellect, entrepreneur, the recognition of their vast accomplishments. And I've been reading more and more about, like I said, Palestinian entrepreneurs that really made an impact on the world, with their scientists, thinkers, entrepreneurs, businessmen, doctors, MDs, engineers, discoverers, innovative intellect. And it's fascinating. I felt my dad is the only one and he's a unicorn, and maybe because people did not give him the recognition because he's rare and he's very, very different. But I came to the conclusion that unfortunately the stereotype and the stigma, which we're going to talk about, eclipsed the world and robbed the world from giving them the chance to be acknowledged and to be recognized and well-deserved. Because it doesn't matter, I believe that it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, religion, race. If you're accomplished, humanity owes you, humanity's duty to acknowledge you and celebrate you. And that's why we're here. So I hope that makes sense. But I want to ask you, Youssef, about that. Is there a part of you, as you were growing up, that hoped or wished that we were recognized more than we were ever were? From hearing your grandparents' story, your parents' story, you have a brother, you have a sister, I'm sure they're well accomplished. Did you ever have feelings like that?
Yes, and I will first say that your father seems like a remarkable individual. Allah yarhamah, God rest his soul, as we say. But yes, these stories, and again, I'm sure you can allude to this as well. We come from a culture of storytelling, right? It's part of our DNA, it's ancestral, and it still carries over till today. So these stories almost kind of rekindle us to back then, and kind of connect us to the realities that our grandparents or great grandparents went through. Even our parents struggled, right? So it's very, very powerful.
It's powerful. It's nostalgic. I agree with you 100%. You're very young, still got years ahead of you. And the longer you go through life, the more nostalgic you're going to become. And I didn't realize that, nor I expected that, to be honest with you. And, I used to hear stories when you hit middle age, things are different. You look at life a little bit different. You look at people differently. Because when you hit middle age, you start reflecting back. You're more yearning to rekindle, like you said, that, traditional tribal connection with your culture, with your family, with your customs, your values and beliefs. It's almost like it's immigrate, it's pilgrimage. You're going back spiritually, emotionally, mentally into your past, and you're trying to pick some of the pieces that you were not even paying attention to while you're going through the life, the hectic life, the speedy life, the buzzing life, achieve, produce, perform, achieve, but yeah, it's fascinating how your mind, because of the strong connection to our culture, and we being the storytelling culture, very nostalgic culture, makes us, when you hit, like I said, middle age, makes us, all of a sudden, we're just going back, tapping into the past and reliving those stories and reliving all these events and reliving those emotions, that warm emotion, sitting with your teta and telling me the story about her neighbor, smoking a cigarette, my grandmother, my dad's mom. And I think my dad, I have to blame him, he got her into smoking. He was a favorite child and the eldest of three, so she listened to him about everything, basically. She trusted him. So, but yeah, it's fascinating, and I can't wait. Hopefully I'll be still around when you hit middle age, and I can't wait to compare notes and say, hey, Dr. Slava, remember when you say this? I'm going through that right now. And it will be really fun. I just can't wait for us to grow up together. So,
amazing.
Any facts or research data you would like to share with us on that you found independently of us, basically?
We do have a shared document, and I do have some facts as well that I would like to share. Let's see. In September 2018, a report from the Palestinian Central Bureau of Statistics found that Palestinians have one of the highest rates of literacy, as you alluded to earlier, but it's not particularly exclusive to the Middle East. It seems that Palestinians all over, as well in the diaspora, are often proficient in at least 2 to 3 languages, and are frequently going to pursue successful careers in engineering, business, or medicine. Again, that speaks to the testament and the will of, our people. You give them rocks and they, build buildings with it, right? So.
Yep. And we still see it in everyday's event these days, fortunately and unfortunately, that they destroy and we build. They destroy and we build. That seems like the pattern of the spirit of the Palestinian people. Now, with every race, with every nation, there's a good and bad. I'm not going to go into controversial debate on that. But according to the statistics, that displacement, and we have talked about displacement a lot in the previous episodes, whether you display yourself by design, by choice, or you got to be displaced by default, meaning that you've done nothing wrong. And like JD Youssef said, that that region, the Levantine region, has a history of constant invasion and constant, because of the strategic location of Palestine, because I think the spirit of the people, the nomad culture that welcomes people in, hoping to live peacefully together, the trade route, right? Palestine connects you to India and Asia. So that was a very attractive spot, having the coast to the Mediterranean, have the access. Arabia did have the Red Sea, but did not have the Mediterranean, which is the door opening to Europe, and that encouraged more trade. That's why the Roman Empire loved the Levantine region for that. So it's all about finance, trade, culture, the spirit of the people, the custom of the people, exchanging stories. That's what makes the Levantine region very, very attractive region for invaders. Okay, so displacement, and we talked a lot about what drives people that got displaced, especially by default. By design, people are driven, of course, so they leave by choice because they choose to make their life better, but they do have the option to go back, right? If it doesn't work, you can go back. But when you get displaced by force, by default, for something that you did not do, it just happens to be, you can't go back. Palestinians that left after 1948, after Nakba, they cannot go back to Palestine. So even if they achieve the highest education, the most high quality of entrepreneurship, they cannot go back to benefit their community and benefit the country and benefit their people. They had to pick Kuwait, Qatar, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. They got dispersed all over. But I believe that every crisis has an opportunity. What that did to the Middle East, it really built the educational system on the shoulders of the Palestinians and the Egyptians. I don't want to ignore the Egyptians' credit for that, especially in the Gulf countries. So I like to think about it that if Palestinians were not displaced by default by force and ignited the drive to achieve higher education and be scholars and be professional medicine, engineering, law, accounting, and they couldn't go back, the Middle East, what would the Middle East look like? The Middle East would have been maybe, especially the Gulf countries, the education will be lacked. It will be maybe backwards. They will be not as advanced as that. I always think of that. Go ahead, Youssef.
And Dr. Slava, what comes to mind as well when you bring up that point is I remember, when you were growing up in Saudi, all of your professors, you said, were either Egyptian or Palestinian, and also, my history background. I remember during the Saddam Ba'athist era, he apparently tapped all pretty much predominantly majority Palestinian teachers. Again, because they were the most educated, they were the most abundant. They were not in Palestine, right? They're in other places, and so it's almost like we had a hand in building a lot of the Middle East, which is actually very, very beautiful.
Yeah, interesting. The world, if you look after the Nakba, the Western world welcomed a lot of Palestinians into their Ivy League universities: Irvine, Berkeley, Harvard, MIT, Cornell, Yale, Oxford, Cambridge. Even the Nordic, the Scandinavians welcomed them to give them that education. But whoever left after the Nakba in 1948, and they did not know they couldn't go back. So when they were done and they wanted to go back to Palestine, they found that they couldn't go back. They had to figure out where the world is gonna need their expertise, and they end up, like I said, in the Gulf. Germany being MDs. Germany took a lot of them. Like I said, Iraq, Syria, Urdun, of course. 50% of Jordan is Palestinians. But it's interesting. I cannot help but think, what if the Nakba did not happen? Would the Palestinians be playing a role in the fundamental building block of the education system in the Middle East?
A great question.
Think about that, right? It's just a theory, right? So let's say Nakba didn't happen and Palestine was a neutral, area for people to come and go. Palestinian Authority, government, all in peace and love and prosperity. Would the Palestinians have that impact on the education system in the Middle East? We won't never find out unless we travel into the parallel universe,
right,
and take that route down. But I can't help but think of that because that's my dad. My dad had that kind of theoretical mindset to say, what if, I wonder, because one of his last hurrah is a 3-part book. Unfortunately, he couldn't write the third part of that book. it was, what would the Middle East look like if Islam did not exist? Would Judaism be dominant? Would Christianity be dominant? But he didn't get the chance to. We have the first two books, but the third book, unfortunately, he passed away. And that's what blacklisted him by so many groups and organizations, Islamic or religious organizations, that they did not want to publish his books. And yeah, he ended up publishing, I think, somewhere in Paris or London, I'm not sure. So I can't help but think of that. Okay, so let's tap into the key psychological and sociocultural factors that drive their determination, the Palestinian determination to seek higher education and have one of the highest literacy rate in the world. The first key that they mention is resilience and perseverance. And let me read you this. Many Palestinian students develop a mindset of perseverance in response to adversity. They see education as a way to challenge their circumstances rather than succumb to them. Okay, that's the first point. The second point is the concept of samad. لما الواحد يصمد means that stay strong, right? Which is steadfastness, is deeply embedded in Palestinian identity, reflecting their ability to endure hardships while striving for a better future. This is huge.
That is huge. Wow.
So many Palestinian students develop a mindset of perseverance in response to adversity. They see education as a way to challenge their circumstances rather than succumb to them. So again, remember, our episode is all about mastering an unlimited mindset by eliminating limited beliefs. I did not know. I mean, I felt it and I could have guessed it, that this is one of the key components, psychological factors behind the mindset of the Palestinians to pursue higher education, to better themselves. But I did not know that, it's going to come together. I created this episode with hoping that I can just spread that message. But me, as half Palestinian, now this is matches, which is the law of attraction of the universe. So it's a mindset of perseverance in response to adversity. So does that mean that if Palestinians did not go through the Nakba in 1948, they would have not developed this mindset?
I mean, honestly, quite possibly. I mean, you could even see it reflected in our language as Palestinians, different words, when you say, if you want to say, call me, udrubli, udrub, give me a hit or give me a call, rather than the Lebanese telfinli, so yeah, I mean, you do see it reflected all throughout kind of the fabric of our society. So it's interesting.
Yeah, so it is, I believe that, because I'm sure you talked to your grandparents, they were young thriving people before Nakba, and I spoke to my grandmother Teta Shakir, my paternal grandmother, and as she puffed her cigarette once a day, she used to get so nostalgic because Bint Khalidha, her cousin, lived still in Nablus, and she used to go and visit her a lot. And she used to tell me that I miss the old days because we used to have Christian neighbors and Jewish neighbors, Palestinians, and they're all sisters, basically, And I mentioned it in the other episodes that they used to babysit each other's kids, birthday parties, wedding, Ramadan, Christmas, Hanukkah. They used to celebrate together. They used to make food for each other, coffee time every single afternoon. So they were very well interwoven within their lifestyle, within their heritage, within their custom and tradition. Very balanced ecosystem. There was no tug of war. So she used to reminisce always on, I miss those days. And then, of course, when things got worse, she could not go back to Nablus as much as she would like to go to see her cousin, and she was her best friend too. But I believe that Palestinians, from talking to our ancestors and grandparents, they did have that mindset, that accommodating, tolerant, inclusivity mindset. And I think it's innate. I think it's natural. I think they are born with it too. Because like we said before, the Levantine region accepted all these invaders. They never pledged war on anybody. They never massacred anybody. They never kicked anybody out. They just took it as is, lived in peace, adapted, and almost like they had this innate high level of multicultural competency. And that's what we talked about as how we pick that up as an immigrant in order for survive. Because when you think about it, that region to survive, as long as it survived, like you said, with all these different invaders, they had to have that compass in them that it's okay, we can figure it out, let's live together, let's pick up the good and drop the bad. And at the end of the day, everybody is going to be fine, So I think the unfortunate event of that region, what happened to Palestine and the Palestinian, I think it just magnified and put that mindset into steroid, basically, and it just took off and became even a more powerful, more steadfast engine to get even more accomplished. And again, we mentioned it before that as an immigrant, as people that when you have suppressed people and oppressed people, you have to overperform, you have to overcompensate in order to champion the stigma that you're not good enough. Now, he can do this, but you can't do that. But they're the same, they're still human. Remember, human, if you translate human is a Nordic word. I think it's German. It means a person of life. That's what human is. It's not man. It's human, meaning the person of life, if you translate it and go back to the word origin. And I think our people stuck to that. Our people preserved that if you respect and you admire life, if you appreciate life, all is good. We can work together, we can build, and like I said, you can give them rock, they can build a house. You can give them sand and they start growing stuff in it. I don't know how they do. And you see it in a lot of the footage on Instagram during the unfortunate war since 2023, that they are distilling water. They're taking salt water, making drinking water. A little kid figured out how to do solar panels on his tent to create electricity so they can charge the phones, so they can document all that, so they can send it out to the world and see exactly what's going on over there. So the innovative drive, the creativity, it's almost like it's incomprehensible to a lot of people, because when you, like I said, intellectually discriminate, I know you're capable, but no, you don't have the right. Because education, I did a video about education. I believe that it's a human fundamental life. It's not a privilege. It's not up to humans to tell you that you deserve education and you don't. That's not right. It's like you deserve life and you don't. You deserve food and you don't. You deserve medicine and you don't. Why? I'm human. I'm made of flesh and blood and brain and neural cells, and I have teeth and I have mouth and I have eyes and nose and I have all the senses. But if I can overshine, I should have the opportunity to grow, to move forward. Because if you can you imagine if humanity mainstream the right for education for a certain race, humanity will cease to exist. Think about it, Youssef, right? So if I say that race they're not capable, they have no creativity, they have no capability, they have no potential, you're not even able to acquire knowledge, you're not able to to know, to process information and facts in order for you to thrive, and then limit it to push that one race that's, has different potentials, but push him and put a pressure on them. No, you're going to be the leader of the world in everything. It doesn't work that way, because we are a mix of different levels of potentials and capabilities. So going back to my point, I think the Palestinians already had that mindset, but the displacement, and I can't call it a conflict, because the definition of a conflict is right? It's equal tug of war. It's a war that one fights, the other fights, one fight the other way. The situation of Palestine is not a conflict, it's basically a suppression and oppression, occupational situation. It's not a conflict. Because if I have a conflict with you, you have the right to defend your views, and I have the right to defend my views, and we can have a conflict and disagreement. There's no disagreement. They don't have the right to disagree. They don't have the right to say, no, I don't like that. They don't have the right to say that, I don't agree with this lifestyle. It's just given to them, dump on them. If you don't like it, then that's fine. If you can get out, you can never come back. So anyways, but those circumstances, I think, ignited and empowered the Palestinian to actually practice that mindset of perseverance. And we can see it in the data. And it's funny how 2023 is when October 7 happened. That article by Columbia University was published in August 23rd, right? This crisis happened in October. So it's very interesting how I think the time is churning. I know the sacrifice is horrific scenes. And it's impacting us, the whole world. We can't sleep, we can't eat, we can't drink, we can't work. It's just very, very distracting, very demonically disturbing that actually is happening in this time and age. But this was written before. Don't you find this interesting? That this article came right before what's going on right now?
Yeah, and actually, a lot of people find that hard to believe. Is how can Columbia University, who was very outspoken, not for the benefit of the Palestinians, right? But yeah, I mean, it just goes to show you that facts are facts. At the end of the day, and you can't kind of conflate those or portray them in a different light. I mean, but yeah, that's 2 months before October, and yeah, very revealing.
Very interesting. It just told me that, and that's why I think I cried. I just felt like, yes, justice. Somebody is saying something beyond the stigma and the stereotype that we just want to fight. You know what I'm saying? You're fighter, you're angry, you're violent. It's not that. We are, every nation, every race has, like I said, the good and bad, the decent, the not so indecent, the righteous and not so righteous. It's just a human nature. It's fine. We accept that. But this puts us in a light that most of us are like that. Most of us are just yearning, and our goal is just to fight just for the sake of fighting. Okay. So they see education as a way to challenge their circumstances rather than succumb to them. Do you agree with that?
Can you say that one more time?
So Palestinians see education as a way to challenge their circumstances rather than succumb to them.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's almost like they're anticipating a roadblock. And that's okay to them, it's not the end of the world. When you tell someone like you or I know, we figure out other ways of getting in, over the door, through the door, under. So, but yeah, I think again, it speaks to that testament of resiliency of the people of Shah.
Yes, exactly. It's what we see in Arabic. Idam, right? So blood is thicker than water. It's I think the genetic predisposition of these tendencies. I do believe that, because we're wired in a certain way, that giving up is not an option. And we talked to Cameron yesterday, failure is not an option. That's what drives you to keep going, try, right? And we have mentioned before, rejection is a redirection, right? When you are rejected, and we get rejected on daily basis, whether by loved one, by strangers, by our own thoughts even, perception of our conduct, but they have a very strong sense and very strong mental engineering to find another way to get it done. And I've seen it with my dad, my story about my dad in Saudi Arabia. He always found a way to succumb to those adversity. It was painful. It was sad. Rejection is sad. I mean, you can't help feel the feeling that you do, but as my healing coach tells me that you have to feel it to heal it. But those are the lessons we pick up because we are constantly being rejected. No, you're not good enough. No, you're not going to do it. No, you don't have the right to ask for that. It's okay for them, not okay for us. Because we live in that, there's a grid, right? A belief system that was created that we are not good enough. We're not valued enough to excel and to grow. So our opponent constantly going through life, trying to find a proof to match that belief system, which is the grid that they live in, right? They have the cage and they walk in, it's like, oh, Palestinians, stop, just reject them, pull over, whatever. So there is a belief system. What we're trying to do in these episodes to change that mindset, to change that belief to the public, to the world globally, that we are more than tent living refugees. We are Palestinian intellect, and we are capable, and we have the facts, and we have the proof that many of us through history, and many of us today as we speak, are going through the process of bettering themselves, seeking higher education. Give you an example. I'm not trying to, my immediate family, I have 4 PhDs and 2 masters, and I have a DDS. Just immediate family. My dad, my brother, my sister, my husband, who's Egyptian. That's another thing. Egyptian mindset, they love education. They're very, 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 very driven for knowledge and the truth, right? Knowledge help you find the truth all the time. Knowledge is a tool to help you find the facts in order to make a better decision for yourself and for your life and for your loved ones. My mom has a master's in French literature from the Sorbonne, and one of my brother has a master's in double electric engineering. So we don't stop there, right? Because if you say, oh, just get your bachelor's, that's enough. That's for us, it's like, oh yeah, watch. We want to take it to the next level. Just get your master's, that's enough. Oh yeah, watch. We're going to get a PhD. Just get one PhD. Oh yeah, watch. I'm going to get another PhD. So, and it's funny how also plugging into the Egyptian mindset, which I hope to discuss in other episodes, that they mirror that too. Like I said, the education system, especially in the Gulf, was built on Palestinians and Egyptians. All right. Now they encourage, there's a more, in the 90s, no, I think the late 80s, we just started in Jeddah, in Saudi Arabia, to see more Saudi educators interested in educating the young for the sake of education, a true passion for education, not because I have nothing better to do, I'm just going to be a teacher kind of thing. I'm not sure if I ever mentioned, my mom is an educator. She worked in the Saudi private school system for 25 years, and she became the principal of the award-winning private school in the whole western region of Saudi Arabia before she retired. So I spend a lot of time in the classroom. I spend a lot of time with the Saudi children. I spend a lot of time with the Palestinian and the Egyptian teachers, more so than even my own school when I went to school, because every holiday, every break I had, I was helping out in school. And my mom thought it was a great theater to learn about life and how to manage people's expectations. So, and I picked up a lot of good lessons, not knowing back then they were really good for me. I was like, this is boring. I don't want to be around kids. I'm tired of babysitting. But now I really appreciate that experience. And my dad being a scholar in literature, that just our household was so much about education. So my mom, remember, my mom is Jordanian, and Jordanians have rights. She could have went back. My dad didn't have a choice. I mean, he could have gone back to Jordan, but Palestinians don't really feel Jordan is as much home. Like they feel like they are landless. But my mom she was not very much nostalgic. She was nostalgic about the Palestinian stories, the refugees that came across from Dhif al-Gharbiyya, from the West Bank into Salt. She admired those. She admired their passion for education, and she shared that stories with us more because my dad was born in Salt, and my mom and my dad went the same elementary school. And then when they started high school, they got split because my dad got shipped out to Egypt at 8th grade. So my mom did not see my dad from 8th grade until she came back after AUB, after she graduated. She went back to Jordan, unfortunately, for her mom funeral, who passed away at age 37 from kidney failure. And rest is history. But she was a true Jordanian. She understood the conflict. She was a huge advocate for a Palestinian cause, but it's not like my dad. It's funny how you see Jordanians talking about the Palestinian cause when you actually talk to the Palestinian about the Palestinian cause, although he was born in Jordan. But yes, I do see that education is a way of challenge their circumstances rather than succumb to them, because I wrote a story about one of the Palestinian refugees that came across the border. His name is Zaid, that ended up being, I don't know, a member of parliament in Jordan, and he got a PhD in law, and he was very, 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 very successewal. And as a politician in Jordan, as Palestinian politician in Jordan, he had a huge impact on the judicial system of Jordan. So the concept of samad, steadfastness, is deeply embedded in Palestinian identity, reflecting their ability to endure hardship while striving for a better future. Do you agree with that? Did you see that with your parents and your grandparents, Youssef?
Yeah. Just listening to, their stories, my grandparents' stories, for example, you're hearing them and it's like, man, I mean, did you not get depressed? Or, it's just whatever bad may have happened. It was just part of the journey, but it didn't define them, right? So, and also I saw that same mentality when they came over to the States, coming to a new world that they did not quite understand yet fully. And so, yeah, I think it's very, very interesting and telling.
But did you pluck anything out of those stories that you feel impacted your life right now as an American Palestinian Lebanese?
So for me, it defines me in a number of ways, but the most impact that I get from it is no matter what I'm currently dealing with or going through, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Just based upon, the stories of my ancestors, right? There is, what's written for you is meant for you. So I think that's where it ultimately goes.
And do you see you have two siblings, right? Do you see that
Correct.
Right across all three children? Do you see that impact in their life, or one of you that didn't really matter, and some of you more passionate about those tools and use those stories to achieve what you guys trying to achieve?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. So with our household, we were kind of trained to learn the culture, learn the language. So it resonated with us a little more, and also kind of helped us figure out what we wanted at the end of the day. Just knowing what our relatives and ancestors have been through, but also that this is not our final home. Our current geographic location, disposition, We're almost citizens of the world, going back to full circle. I think one fact that I'll verify is I think we've had 50 different standing armies come through the Levant and Jerusalem specifically. So you can imagine that we're taking everything, and so we'll almost know how to conduct ourselves, amongst different people and different circumstances. So.
Yeah, that's what we called in the previous episode the multicultural competency and multicultural adaptability. And it's huge. It's an advantage that our people have. I think Egyptians have too. And I think all the Levantine region and North Africa and Africa too. But I think any ancient civilization that's been around for long enough to pick up a lot of those skills and tools and pass it on to the next generation. So, Youssef, any final thought? Unfortunately, we're coming to the end of the episode. Any final thoughts for us?
The final thoughts would be this was a great conversation, and I think it opens us up to a lot of different sub-topics and sub-conversations based upon this. So I think this was amazing. You mentioned Cameron. I want to see if we can kind of get some other people on who can kind of give their stories. But I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I promise you guys, I don't want you guys to be bored of seeing me and JD Youssef. Our future plan is to have many figures and guests to come on, especially immigrant Palestinian, American Palestinians, and any Arab would like to come on to tell their story and share their experience in order for you guys to uncover and discover their lessons and tools, how they survive and thrive as an entrepreneur, as a coach, as a mentor, as a businessman or educator. So we can't wait to have some of those guests over and on our episodes. But unfortunately, we reach the end of our hour, and thank you so much for listening. Please like and share. Remember that those episodes are available for you to listen and watch whenever you want, wherever you are, on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And if you enjoyed this, please let us know in the comments. Send us any questions if you would like to discuss any topic that we already discussed.
Yes.
Details and more in depth. Please, like I said, leave your thoughts and your ideas in the comments below. And remember, this can't happen without your support. And please, 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 like I said, do not stop telling your stories for the sake of humanity. So I hope you enjoy this and hope we guys see you next time. Bye. Thank you, Youssef. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.